Before I introduce you to my next guest today, I want to make sure that you're aware of a training and coaching resource to help you increase your productivity, clarify your purpose, and improve your communication skills. It's called the Next Level Coaching and Leadership with Purpose programs. To learn more, simply go to warrenwandling.com, and under the programs tab, you'll find both of those resources. Again, that's WARRENWANDLING.com. Now, on to the show.
There's a whole new world out there. And if you wouldn't trade Zoom and Airbnb and streaming and instant cash apps, if you wouldn't trade that stuff for phone books and travel agents, then just remember there's a whole bunch of stuff now that's going away that 5 years from now, you would never trade the new stuff for that old stuff that we gave up. So we're in the process of letting go of that right now.
Welcome back to another episode of How to Become an Obstacle Buster. I'm your host, Warren Wandling, the show that's dedicated helping leaders and entrepreneurs to overcome their obstacles, build resilience, and achieve success. And I have a great guest with us today, Perry Marshall. Welcome to the show, Perry.
Good to be here, Warren. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. As a renowned business strategist, marketing expert behind Ultimate Guide to Google Ads and 80/20 sales and marketing, you shape the 400 billion digital ad space. You've consulted across 300 plus industries. Can you share with our listeners just a little more about your background?
I was just telling a story an hour ago. Thanksgiving of 1997, I was riding in a pickup truck with my brother-in-law. I had just gotten fired from a sales job that I'd worked at for 2 years and been notoriously unsuccessful. I had accepted another job that I hadn't started yet. And I have an engineering degree, and my brother-in-law's son, my nephew, was in the middle of getting an engineering degree. And he goes, "So Perry, you don't really seem to be doing all that well. And my son is following in your footsteps. And I just want to make sure it's going to be there for him." And I go, "Well, Brett, I've taken a lot of risks that probably your son wouldn't necessarily need to take. And I went into sales, and yeah, your son's going to be just fine." And, meanwhile, I'm really not enjoying this conversation. And at this point, we were kind of scraping the guardrails. And if this next job didn't work out, we were probably going to end up leaving Chicago and moving into the house next door to my wife's parents on their farm, like where the rent would be really cheap, and probably starting over. And I was not enjoying my life very much at that point. And it's not like I had a lot that I could tell Brett, that was going to make him happy.
Yeah.
Well, that time period feels a lot like now. Let me explain why.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yes.
Okay. This applies to a lot of people, like not just me. And here's why I'm saying that. So that next job did work out really well. We grew a product business from 200,000 to 4 million a year in 4 years, and sold the company for $18 million a month and a day after 9/11.
Timely.
Yeah. Well, 9/11 somehow didn't completely botch the deal. It could have. And I parachuted out, and I started the consulting company that I have now. But here's why I say that we're in a similar time period. So in 1995, hardly
The world
anybody
was
was
in a
on the
huge
internet.
technological
And by 2000,
transition,
almost
and
everybody was on the
there's a
internet.
sad part, and then
And that
there's a
story
happy
I
part.
just
And the
told
sad
you was
part
right
is,
in the middle.
well, the
It
phone
was,
books are
it was
going
right
away,
where
and the
people are
travel
like,
agents are
hey,
going away, and the
I went to Best
newspapers
Buy
are
and they
going
were
away,
selling,
and oh my word, the
a
sky is
modem, and I think
falling.
I'm going to install it on my computer
I
and
wasn't
get myself
attached
an
to any
email
of
address.
that.
And
I was
I just
just a
got an
scrambling
AOL
guy with a
CD in the
wife and a
mail.
baby, and I'm not
This is
even 30
where
years old.
Yeah.
The world
And
was.
I'm just trying to make a living. And now all this internet comes along. And what do we have now that didn't even exist then? We didn't have streaming. We didn't have Zoom calls. We didn't have this platform I'm talking to you on right now. We didn't have the I'll send you a Venmo or an Apple Pay, because you bought mom's birthday present, or there was an Airbnb. So travel agencies went away, but how much more travel is going on now than was going on then? And newspapers weren't doing very well, but how much more news is being consumed now compared to then? And I could go on and on and on and on. And so a lot of people are terrified AI is going to take all our jobs away. Well, it's like farming took a lot of jobs away, and it made it possible to have a lot of engineers and artists and designers and Starbucks baristas and like all kinds of other jobs. Like, well, now that it only takes 3% of the population to grow all our food, we can all do much more interesting things. Like, is anybody really mourning the fact that transcriptionists went away?
Yeah.
Isn't it better that we just upload a file and it makes us a transcript? So there's a whole bunch of basically dumb jobs that technology is getting rid of, and people are afraid because they don't realize how many more completely new industries. Because I just rattled off a few. Spotify and streaming. Like, well, okay, so the compact discs and selling albums went away, but there's more money in the music industry right now than there ever was. People are paying $600 to go to a Taylor Swift concert, and that's like $1 billion business all by itself. So the opportunity is not going away. And I think 2022 to 2027 is just like 1995 to 2000. It's the same thing all over again. History doesn't repeat, but it does rhyme.
Yeah, and that rhythm, I think, comes in from your perspective, certainly with your 80/20 sales and marketing, those that are going to not run from that rhythm, but be able to understand it and be able to embrace it.
Yes. Yes. And 80/20 applies hugely. Let's talk about that for a second. So the 80/20 principle says that 20% of the people control 80% of the wealth, and 80% of the people only control 20% of the wealth, which means the haves have 16 times more leverage than the have nots. That's baked into the laws of the universe. You're not going to make that go away, but you can position yourself to be in the top 20%. I don't think it's that hard to be ahead of the pack. Most people think AI is basically a glorified search engine. It's a lot more than that. But it's also changing a lot of things in the world. So, for example, it's changing marketing in a fundamental way. So, one of the things that really got popular when the internet got going was a lot of businesses, they didn't even know they were doing this, but they were borrowing ideas from the mail order business that were 100 years old and applying to, I'm going to sell biotech, I'm going to sell steel or like whatever, or dental services. They would take an information generating front end, bolt it onto the front end of their business, buy some advertising, give away a white paper, a free report, or something like that. They would get somebody to sign up, and then they would cultivate a relationship with them. And that's worked great across hundreds of industries until lately, when AI is making a lot of that redundant, and the expectation of what you have to give somebody for free to get them to engage has gone up. If they can sign up, go to ChatGPT and get an answer in 15 seconds, then they're not going to give away a piece of their privacy. But let's remember something. Humans are humans, and human needs are still human needs. People are still lost and confused and stressed and have a problem they don't know how to solve. And so the frustrations don't go away. They just move to a different level. And so I think a lot of what people considered to be state-of-the-art marketing is going away. It's being replaced by something more sophisticated. And the cool part is that you can build a moat around the castle. So let me tell you about one of my clients that did this. His name is Finn Peacock. He's in Australia, and he has a company called Solar Quotes Australia. And what their company does is, if you're thinking about solar power in your home, they will get 3 contractors to show up, give you a quote, and quote you the job, and they oversee some of that customer experience. They built a customer service AI bot, and they set it up. So they trained it on their body of knowledge, which is very different than what ChatGPT is going to do, because ChatGPT is just averaging all of the information across the entire internet, which often isn't very accurate. This is a huge problem with AI. They said, well, we're going to train an AI on our material. They put it in place, and every time a customer service ticket comes in, the AI answers a question and sends it to a person to double check it. And the person's either thumbs up or thumbs down. And if it's thumbs down, it goes into a reject pile. And then they're going to fix the database when they go through the reject pile and make it better. So it gets better and better and better. So it improved customer service efficiency 30%. It made the customer service management job more interesting, because now they're managing a bot instead of just answering every question themselves. It means the boring, repetitive questions they don't have to answer anymore, because the bot will just do that for them. And it means that the answers that you get from them are better than any other source in the world on the internet. And the engine is under their roof. It's not public, it's private, and they own it. So this, on the surface, this might just appear to be a customer service bot for a solar power company, like no big deal. Well, how many people listening have a body of work? You're a subject matter expert, you're a manufacturer, you're a doctor, you're a health coach, you are a fill in the blank, whatever you do. If what you do relies on specific expertise that you have curated, if you are not like every other health coach in the world, because you have a particular point of view, a particular angle, a particular set of processes and principles that you use, then there is a window of opportunity right now for you to put your body of work on a private GPT, like not offer it as a burnt sacrifice to ChatGPT. I'm not suggesting that you do that. That would be a bad idea. And you can start that conversation going with your customers, and you can build it. And you can build something that exists as an asset outside of your own brain. It's not just files on your hard drive anymore. It's a living body of work that continues to evolve as people use it. This is a 21st century moat around a manufacturer, a health coach, a doctor, an architect, anybody who's an expert on a consultant. And I don't hardly see anybody doing this. The few people I do see doing this, they're giving all their IP to some big platform. And I don't think you should be doing that. And so we've been working with our clients to set up private GPTs, just like Solar Quotes did. And I think that's a huge opportunity right now. And I don't see anybody else talking about that. I think it's a huge deal.
For the private sector, is there a specific organization that's managing that process that you recommend? Or if one of our listeners says, that's an interesting concept, we need to look into it further, what's that first step?
IPvault.ai. And we are a partner in that company. And if somebody has a question about it, you can email edith@perrymarshall.com, EDITH at perrymarshall.com, and we'll talk to you about that. I want you to consider what used to be a moat around a castle or a competitive wall around a business, what it used to be versus what it is now. It used to be that competitive walls were factories, distribution channels, trucks, transportation systems, like big money, billion-dollar, hundreds of millions of dollar things. Now, the moats around castles are network effects. They are communities that are hard to replicate. So, for example, Uber, more riders attracts more drivers, which lowers the wait time, which attracts more riders, which attracts more drivers, which lowers the wait time. And that is a moat around Uber and Lyft, which is impenetrable. You'd be insane to start a taxi company or a rideshare company now because those networks have been built. And these kind of networks, they keep eBay in place and Airbnb and Spotify. And this is a 21st century moat. And very few subject matter experts realize you can have a 21st century moat around your IP, and you can build a conversation with your clientele that makes it get better and better and better every day. And it's totally unique. It will not give a person the same answers as they would get on Gemini or Claude or Perplexity or any of these giant platforms. And any place where the giant platform gives you a mediocre answer, which anybody with expertise knows what that is and where it is and where the answer is off, there is a new opportunity. And I think it's like starting a YouTube channel in 2006 or starting a podcast in 2010, where it's not an instant thing. It's a slow juggernaut, and it's a huge asset. By the way, Finn Peacock sold Solar Quotes to a private equity firm 2 months ago for really good money. And what I'd like everybody to consider is, if you didn't sell your business yesterday, you bought it today. So, do you have the kind of business that another person would want to buy? Because if you do, then it's a nice business to own yourself, and you're rolling out of bed and you're running a pleasant business that's enjoyable. Or is your business like a car that's got cheeseburgers stuffed in the back seat and French fries all over the floor and chewing gum, and it doesn't ride very well and it doesn't smell good and it's a mess? Like, you get to decide.
Very interesting. That is an obstacle Our leaders need to realize that that's in front of them. So, what do you think is the greatest obstacle for leaders to be able to embrace what you just shared?
I think right now it's fear.
Yeah, I wonder why
Again,
that is.
well, right now, I'm talking to you in March of 2025. We've had now, about 6 weeks of muzzle velocity, which is, the White House is every 12 seconds, there's a new executive order and there's chaos. A lot of people are nervous about that, tariffs and that there's AI rapidly changing everything. So, the same thing that happened to phone books and travel agents 20 years ago is happening to a whole other. It's happening to digital agencies. It's happening to content marketers. It's happening to, and there's a next evolution. And frankly, I think a lot of people are waking up in a cold sweat at 3:00 in the morning going, what am I going to do about all of this? Well, biting your fingernails isn't really the answer. I think you need to take a step back. You need to plug in communities that are eagerly and rapidly embracing the change. And you need to start getting really clear about what the old rules were versus what the new rules are about to be. Because right now, it's almost like it's all yellow lights. We are halfway between an old set of rules and a new set of rules. It's like being in 1998 all over again. And so let me tell you a little more of a story about when our company so we grew that company $18 million. It got sold, and they were offering me a job. It wasn't a great job offer, but it was a job. It was a month after 9/11, and nobody was buying anything. We were selling capital equipment, which is a long-term investment. And when the world's in turmoil, that kind of stuff just stops. So there was no orders coming in. There was no phone calls going on. The company I've worked for 4 years is getting sold, and the new company is offering me a job. My wife said, Perry, I think you should parachute out and start a company. I'm like, what? She goes, you've been wanting to start a business for a long time, and you've acquired a lot of marketing expertise, and this is your chance. I think if you don't do it now, you're never going to do it. You're going to get some stock options out of this, which will help you along. And I think now's your chance. And I asked around, and one lady said to me, maximum uncertainty equals maximum opportunity. And it's easy to see the uncertainty. It's hard to see the opportunity. And I listened to that and I said, okay, I'm going to do that. I turned the job down. They marched me to the door. I cleaned out my desk, and an hour later I was in my car. I didn't know that was going to happen that day. I didn't know
wow.
the minute I told them that I wasn't taking the new job, I was just going to be ushered to the door and sent out. And I remember driving out of the parking lot going, geez, I guess my life just changed. All of my coworkers thought I was crazy. So let's fast forward a year. You know what happened? The new company that bought us, their stock plummeted from $7 a share to $2 a share. All of the investors that had invested in our company previously, their stock was now underwater. Their stock was tied up because they had stayed. My stock was not, because I left. And everybody was unhappy. My boss ended up becoming a vice president at the new company, and he didn't get along with anybody. He ended up leaving a year later. And meanwhile, what happened to me was 6 months later, I'm a new consultant I'm hustling. I'm looking for clients. This new thing called Google AdWords comes along. I go,
Yeah.
oh, that's really cool. I got to get some leads. I got to get some opportunities. I'm going to use that. And I started using Google Ads, and a year and a half later, I was teaching it to thousands of people. I had no idea that was going to happen. I think we are in a replay of that right now. And it worked for me because I was hungry. I was scrapping. I was looking for opportunities. I was not attached to the old way that the world was. And so I think there's a detachment that needs to happen for a lot of us, myself included. The way things were is not the way things are going to be. And so let's live in the is world, not the should be world, and let's roll with the changes.
Yeah, that's a really great analogy. I love that in reference for the Google AdWords, because if you go back then, the same language was happening with leaders. That's not going to work. That the time and effort, don't put it in right. So it's the same language we're having today around AI, as you've mentioned.
Yes. Yes. When Google AdWords was brand new, big brands were like, oh, well, I don't want to do it. I don't want to bid on keywords. Like what's this? And Google, like it's so easy to forget how different advertising was back then, and what a brand manager or an advertising manager thought they wanted to do back then versus Google's like, no, we've got millions of users. We've been paying attention to what makes a quality search experience, and we're going to build an advertising system based on that. And boy, that was one of the most successful businesses of the last 100 years, as we all know. So there's a whole new world out there. And if you wouldn't trade Zoom and Airbnb and streaming and instant cash apps, if you wouldn't trade that stuff for phone books and travel agents, then just remember there's a whole bunch of stuff now that's going away that 5 years from now, you would never trade the new stuff for that old stuff that we gave up. So we're in the process of letting go of that right now.
Yeah, that's a definitely good point. So in reference to that, what do you think is a common belief or habit that hold leaders back to take the right action? Like with what you shared, they have just like the window should be like wide open, and they should be able to like contact you, do the research, and to figure out what their next step is. But there's obviously a belief or a habit that's going to hold them back.
So this is going to surprise you a little bit. I think the habit that holds people back is they wake up in the morning, they reach across the nightstand, they grab a device, and they start the death scroll.
Yes.
That is the worst way you can start your day, because it puts you in reactive mode literally in 10 seconds from when you wake up, and then you're reacting to the world the whole rest of the day. That might be how 90% of the people in the world run their life. It's not how leaders run their life. Here's the habit you should cultivate. When you get out of bed, you do not open your phone. You do not start answering emails or texts or social media or news or anything. You go sit down with a notebook or a pad of paper. You think, you pray, you journal, you meditate, you plan your day, you decide what your priorities are, you get yourself centered, and then you start your day. And then you start doing the most proactive 80-20 thing that you can do. You do the 20% of activities that are going to produce 80% of the revenue. You do not just react to everybody's fire drill. That one habit will absolutely change your life. That's been my really habit powerful. For 11 years.
11 years. So obviously it's worked in your favor.
It has worked very much in my favor. And I have a ton of clients, a ton, that swear by it. And this is one of the reason I have somebody in my network sell their business for 8 figures about once every 2 or 3 months. And I think this is a major reason why.
So to make that transition, that's definitely a habit change. Just not to touch your phone is a habit change. But then transitioning for them to be able to journal and do those other practices that you mentioned. Is there one strategy or secret that you share with those leaders that you work with that actually implement that process?
So I believe in the muse. The word music comes from muse, and the ancient Greeks believed that the muse was a higher intelligence that unpredictably bestows music, ideas on people. You could call it a divine connection. I know that like all the great composers like the Bachs and the Beethovens of the world, they'll all tell you, I was channeling that. Like I didn't just invent that. I heard it. I put it on paper. J.K. Rowling's got a story of how Harry Potter was a download that she got over 3 hours on a stalled train. And it just came into her mind, and she took notes furiously. And then she spent the next few years just taking what was already in her head and just getting it out on paper. But it all came at once. And it only comes to people who have cultivated it and are ready for it. And you can cultivate it and you can be ready for it. And the more you cultivate it, the more it will come.
So journaling is one of those.
And listening. And listening. 80% of the creative ideas go to 20% of the people. And it's the ones that are listening.
You can't be listening if you're scrolling.
That's right. Amen, brother. Preach it.
Well, awesome. Those are some great strategies that you definitely share with our listeners today. Are there any special projects that you're currently working on?
Yes. I am doing an equity AI seminar April 22 in Chicago.
Okay.
And if you're intrigued by what I've described today, I have a book that you can buy on Amazon called Detox, Declutter, Dominate. And it describes a regimen starting with the journaling. I call it Renaissance time. Starting your day with Renaissance time every day. And then there are 6 other habits that are in that book that apply to you, whether you make $100,000 a year or $100 million a year. I don't know of any other consultant or author who has an operating system that's the same whether you're 100,000 or 100 million. And it's really nice as your business and your empire grows to not have to suddenly switch and go, okay, what served me at $500,000 revenue is not working at $2 million revenue, and I have to go start over.
Well, perfect. I'll make sure that link is in the show notes.
Yeah. It will. It's only 36 pages. It's a very short book.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very profound. It'll change your whole entire outlook on everything.
That's awesome. So I know our listeners are wanting to reach out to you, Perry. What's the best way for them to be able to connect?
You can go to perrymarshall.com/podcast and you can sign up for the Perry Marshall Minute, which is a daily email. And if you want to get in touch, email edith@perrymarshall.com, EDITH@perrymarshall.com. And one of my staff members will be right in touch with you.
All right, perfect. And again, I'll include all those links in that email in the show notes as well.
Yes, sir.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing all your strategies and tips with our listeners today. And I think really hoping to open some eyes in reference to embracing AI.
Thank you, Warren.
Well, this is your host, Warren Wandling, saying until next time, be an obstacle buster and be resilient.